You're listening to CreepGeeks Podcast. So it begins again. Welcome to CreepGeeks Podcast, Season 6, Episode 235.
Small Town Monsters Kickstarter, weather and the paranormal, plus food Mandela effects.
Yeah. So here we are again. Welcome to the CreepGeeks Podcast. If this is your very first time listening, we appreciate having you here. And if you're here all the time, welcome. Welcome back. It's good to see you. Yeah. Okay, so this particular podcast, we have a lot of stuff to talk about. And just in case you didn't know, I'm Greg.
I'm Omi.
And we do the CreepGeeks Podcast.
Yeah.
So what is the CreepGeeks Podcast all about?
CreepGeeks Podcast is an offbeat podcast exploring the paranormal, cryptid, supernatural, and simply absurd nonsense circulating the web. Broadcasting paranormal news and strange experiences from our underground bunker in the mountains of western North Carolina.
Yeah, a little part of Appalachia for you.
Yeah.
Okay, so here we go. We have a phone number just in case you want to basically share something with us. You can go ahead and jot it down. We'll wait while you get a pencil. All right. It's, well, I mean, it's quick. You know, a lot of people have pencils at the ready, right?
Yeah.
No, I don't. If you said find a pencil, you have 2 minutes, we'd be dead. We'd have no pencil.
I just open up notes on my phone.
That's because you're so modern.
Because I don't want to put it in phone in case I accidentally immediately call them. So I open notes on my phone.
That's a good trick.
So
that's a good trick.
That phone number.
What I do is I write the phone number down on a piece of paper or cardboard box of some kind, whatever handy, and then I take a picture of it and save it in my phone.
Oh.
And then later on I'll email it and then print out the email. And hand that email out to people in case they need the number.
Did you know you can take the picture now and put it into notes on iPhone?
That's not nearly as effective.
It'll
as just
transcribe
basically
the number.
sending it to yourself as an email and then printing out that email and giving it to people.
It'll like OCR the text on the
well,
image.
Android does it too, so it's not just an iPhone thing.
Anyways, that phone number you can reach us at is 575-208-4025.
Yeah, back in the olden days when email became more of a popular thing, when I was in the Navy, right, dude would read the email on his computer, print it out, right, and then in morning quarters, we're all gathered together, would read the email that we all read and signed off on. Just to make sure. And then when you'd have a question about it, he'd go, well, didn't you read the email? And it's like, well, of course, we all read it, and you read it to us. So
I was in a millennial humor group, and they were joking about, remember 10 years ago when everybody had a home printer, and now nobody's got a printer? What were we printing back then?
We printed everything.
We printed emails, apparently.
You print out an email, here you go.
We printed out MapQuest directions.
You'd print out the email, sign something, if you had to, scan it back in, make an email out of it, hope something like MS Fax would work, and try to send it back.
Yeah. Well, gosh, we were printing out a bunch of nonsense back then.
We're still doing it.
True.
I mean, if you think about it, it's like people will accept a fax as an official document, but they won't accept like a digitally signed email. Oh, it's too easy to hack or whatever. Whatever the excuse is, it's still an excuse.
Oh, well.
This is why we don't have flying cars or haven't, had full disclosure yet, and we're all on board with it because we do stupid stuff like that.
Because we're still printing everything?
Yeah.
Yeah.
This
is why disclosure will never happen. It's because we're still
printing
and it's
everything.
Funny
because like when we bought a house, one of the realtors that we were considering using, I said, well, can you just email it to me? And she said, well, I don't do that. And I was like, oh, okay, cool. And I immediately blocked her phone number, and then we went with somebody else because we bought our house basically using the phone.
Yeah.
And a tech-savvy realtor who could do everything over the phone. And it was like, come on, this is the way it should be.
And then because you blocked her and I didn't realize it, and I had to tell her over the phone that you blocked her, she proceeded to bug me for 3 months.
Yep, that happens.
Yeah.
Sometimes that's what you got to do.
Yeah.
Take the heat. Okay, so anyway, here we go. We all have stuff to talk about, and I figured we would go ahead and kind of do some things. One of the things that we do like to do is we like to talk about what we're going to eat after the podcast is done. Okay, so we get together, record the podcast. Sometimes it's like pulling teeth because there's a lot of things going on. And you're like, what am I going to talk about now? But there's always that shiny, shiny little community dinner we do afterwards with us.
Yeah.
Being me, you, and the dog. Pepper the paranormal pupper. Mm-hmm. And this particular dinner is going to be
baked ziti with ground beef.
Now, I'm super excited about this because I had no idea what it was because I initially put sandwiches in soup. Because that's the default. You know, should you decide that you don't want to cook and the burden falls upon me because I'm a way better eater, right?
Than cooker.
Okay. So, yes. Yeah. So this sounds way better. All right.
Okay.
Now, we also have something else that we do. It's called the 14 or 40 in terms of the day.
Yeah.
So we normally have a lot of these, and we just do one at a time, right? Because it creates long-lasting, evergreen content.
Oh.
But today we're going to do more than one. We're probably going to do about, I don't know, as many as it takes to get tired of doing them, and we'll move into something else.
Yeah.
All right. So I'm going to go ahead and do the second one. And that's primarily for you to do the first one. Okay. So the second one is a port.
A port.
A port. Mm-hmm. Okay. So a port is when an object is transferred from one place to another, right, through a non-understood paranormal method. Ports are often associated with poltergeist activity or seances, but can also result in objects appearing from nowhere during investigations. Often this is coins, which gives you the phenomenon of pennies from heaven.
What is a non-understood paranormal method?
It's pretty easy. You're in this weird paranormal type situation, right?
Uh-huh.
And you have no idea how it got there. So I would like to reference back to one of our earlier podcasts when we were talking to the Navajo Rangers, right? The native Navajo, right, investigators that had to basically patrol the Navajo Nation.
Yeah.
And they talked about a case where they were in a place and basically coins kept appearing. Like they were doing an investigation and they would hear coins hit the floor.
Yeah.
And these items were being apported. And they had no idea where they were coming from or what they were. And a lot of times they're like old dates and they're really unusual. So you can also experience this like with poltergeist activity when you set something down and it's gone.
I think I'm just hung up.
And then you find it like, 5 weeks later in the same spot or somewhere else that it shouldn't be. Like that one girl who may be fake, not being able to find this block of cheese, but she found it in the drawer like 2 weeks later.
Okay. I think I'm just hung up over the non-understood. I guess a better explanation for me would have been undetermined because like with the Navajo Rangers versus the girl with the block of cheese, the Navajo Rangers, it could have been anything from manifestation to portals. The girl with the block of cheese. Yeah, but see, that's just it, though.
Nobody knows for sure. So nobody knows. So it's a non-understood thing.
Undetermined, I think, is better than non-understood.
Well, potato, whatever. It doesn't matter because at the end of the day, it's an apport.
Okay.
Right, so things get apported.
So which one am I doing?
Well, I mean, number one is apparition. See, we got these. We have all the stuff that we talk about is provided in our show notes at our website, which is CreepGeeks.com, where our show notes are, and you can kind of click and follow along and, do your own research. We got this from higgypop.com. So you can pick one. How about that? Number one is apparition. Everybody kind of knows what an apparition is. I was kind of wanting to look at some that maybe people don't hear that often.
Number 10.
Okay, just skip right over automatic writing and astral projection.
Well, fine.
And you're going to direct voice phenomena.
Yeah, DVP.
Yeah, that's a good one.
That's a good one. So
unlike EVP that's explained in every ghost show you ever watch, DVP is, I think, the scary.
Yeah, direct voice phenomenon is the experience of hearing audible, disembodied voices that are heard during paranormal investigations, seances, or at a haunted location. These voices are spoken directly to the witnesses and heard without electronic equipment.
Yes. So imagine doing an investigation and right in your ear you hear, hey.
I also like the direct part of it because, remember when we were at the Chaco Outlier Ruins?
Yeah.
And only we heard the music at the top of the cliff?
Yeah. Well, part of that was we were the only ones there.
And eventually when people pulled up and we could still kind of faintly hear the music as we went down the mountain, or the mesa, I should say.
Yeah.
They didn't hear it.
Nope.
So, yeah.
Yeah, so I'm trying to figure out what would be another couple one. Okay, so you ever see when Harry, what's his name? Harold Potter, right? When Harold Potter looks in that little well thing, that little bird bath looking deal, right?
Barely.
So he basically looks in the little thing there to see stuff.
Okay.
What he's doing is a form of hydromancy. So hydromancy is a method of divination by means of water, sometimes used by ghost hunters in a similar way to mirror scrying, which involves looking for shapes and patterns on the surface of the water and the ripples.
Okay.
So there you go. So Harold Potter, here's a good one, though. You should do infrasound.
Infrasound is very low frequency sound below the human range of hearing. It's not paranormal in nature, but these low frequency vibrations can cause people to have experiences similar to those associated with the paranormal. This can include feeling discomfort, disorientation, or panicked, as well as having an increased heart rate and blood pressure. In extreme cases, infrasound has been linked to feelings of depression, a general feeling of unease, as well as visions like apparitions.
Yeah.
So
here's a good one. I like this. This next term makes it sound way more brave than it really is.
Okay.
It's lone vigil. A lone vigil involves one investigator being sent to haunted location or a specific part of a haunted location on their own in order to embark upon an investigation.
Don't we just call that solo?
No.
Okay.
Often this involves sitting and waiting for paranormal activity to occur.
Like when they send Aaron by himself someplace.
Yeah, and a lot of shows do that. Hey, we're going to need you to go down there and sit in this creepy place by yourself, right? Some people call it going solo or whatever, or, hey, go check this out, or, hey, I need you to do this or whatever. But I like the idea of lone vigil. I'm going to send you on a lone vigil to go sit here and let me know what you come up with, Yeah. So we've talked about pareidolia in the past.
Oh, my
right?
gosh.
Yeah.
Pareidolia is all over right now. If you're on platforms like Facebook and Instagram, there's a lot of allegedly new Bigfoot photos and video out there, and there's a lot of pareidolia going on right now.
Yeah, I'm
to the point where we decided not to talk about some of them.
Yeah.
Yeah. Because I can't be polite on some of these.
Yeah.
So.
And okay, so we basically come from a background where we have some photographic skills and video skills. And this is more the technical side of things, right?
Mm-hmm.
And if I see one more, home security footage where it's obviously, not what people want it to be, but more a method of compression being used with pixel interpolation and things like that, that these companies that sell these inexpensive security systems use as a means to provide you a video image, and you look at it and you're like, that's obviously not a floating ghost or whatever. That's a guy or a girl, whatever, walking their dog. And the thing is that the video itself is not updating in a way that shows you the complete picture, right? We have security systems that we use, and we actually have 3 different types from 3 different manufacturers. None of them are over $500. They all use the same compression, and they all use video interpolation. Or I should say pixel interpolation, to take a small sensor that's inside the camera with a small amount of pixels and make them bigger so that they can say, this is a 4K video system, right? So it's kind of like you're taking a drop of, ink and diluting it to the point where, yes, it's still a drop of ink, but it looks a whole lot less vibrant and colorful
and detailed
than it does. So it's like the difference between using a drop of ink versus using a drop of watercolor ink.
And the contrast between it and another drop of ink nearby is nowhere near as great.
Yeah. I mean, you talk about pixels and their color matrix that they're built up on, red, green, blue, and the type of pico lens that's built into the pixel itself. If that lens is cloudy, we can talk about this in the Bayer layer. so when you see it and you're like, ooh, what is that? It's like what you have there, my friends. And I'm not saying all security videos like this, but in a lot of cases, what you have here, my friends, is garbage video made by an inexpensive product. Because to be completely honest, the really expensive security systems that you look at where the camera is like $4,000, those are the ones who get the best quality. But who has $4,000 to spend on one camera or a camera setup or a camera system? We used to work with the cameras that are $16,000 a piece.
And here's the thing. Even if it is a $4,000 or $16,000 camera, the person operating it is ultimately the one that helps determine the quality or output of the evidence from it.
Yeah, maybe. That's the interpretation of it. But at the end of the day, video is video. If you take the video and you play it and somebody looks at it and says, this is what I see, that's great. Send it off to an expert and they're like, no, this is what it is.
Well, I mean, okay.
We can go into the science of like how this stuff works. But at the end of the day, what we see, like give you an example, Blind Frog Ranch. We've been watching that Mystery at Blind Frog Ranch, right? The second episode of the second season so far, they noticed it up on the hill. Somebody was spying on them. They had a spy camera up there, a video camera that's obviously, like a pan tilt zoom type camera. It's mounted globe based, so it does 360 and all this crazy stuff, right? And they could see anywhere on the ranch with it. At least that's the idea. And they go up there and it's the camera. It's basically drilled into a rock. And there's a box with a battery, and it's got a cellular modem, like a 4G cellular modem where you put a SIM card in it, a battery pack to keep it powered, and an external hard drive to store that video information because it doesn't live stream. Okay?
Yeah.
And they're like, oh my goodness, this is something that you can't readily buy. This is super high-tech stuff. It's like you could buy all of that on Amazon for seriously less than $1,000. Every bit of it, and have it delivered to your door.
Yeah.
But, hey, I think what really threw them off is that it looked like somebody had taken some spray paint and put some, garbage-looking camo on it.
Faux camo.
This is military quality. It's like, absolutely not. No, it is not. But anyway, there we go. Oh, one thing that's pretty cool, though, is, you ready? Trigger objects.
Oh, I was going to talk about stone tape theory.
Okay, we'll do that one. That one's better than trigger objects.
Stone tape theory, or atmospheric photograph theory, is said to be responsible for hauntings in which witnesses report seeing replays of past events and is closely linked to the idea of residual energy.
Yeah.
It is speculated that a human's energy or emotions are captured and recorded in the stone of a building. It is then said to replay to those who are sensitive to it when the atmospheric conditions are the same or on the anniversary of the event.
So for all you youngsters out there who may not be aware of VCR tapes and audio tapes, if you play one over and over and over again, eventually the magnetic tape will have an indelible sort of imprint of what's been on there. So you can record over it multiple times, but at the end of the day, you'll still have, some recorded information there. And sometimes you can actually see it.
I really like this.
So that's the idea behind it, is that, what's really happening is that, this indelible imprint that's happened is just being replayed over and over and over again. And those are the cool ones. Like you see, I think if you're looking for an example, more often than not, it'd be like battlefields and things like that really have
Gettysburg.
Right. Where you see like soldiers cruising by, and they're obviously oblivious to everything that's going on. So is that an intelligent haunt? Maybe not necessarily. So, but it's the idea that, dramatic experiences or traumatic experiences get recorded somehow in the earth and it just gets replayed over and over again.
And the idea that basically the way you record and store data, or traditionally, which was an electronic charge or electrical charge, some sort of charge imprinting onto some type of recording device, and how that reflects in the paranormal world, that events and traumatic situations are the same thing. They're a charge that imprints onto a situation or environment. I don't know. I really like that.
Yeah.
So, yeah. Which
can be slightly different than what a residual haunting would be, which is a type of haunting that could be caused by, the residual energy of whatever caused it. And the witness is going to be seeing, sensing, or experiencing the imprint of the lingering psychic or emotional energy of a person or an event that took place in that location in the past.
Yeah.
So there you go. So anyway, there you go. There's enough of those. There's like 60 of these. And like I said, there's a link in the show notes where you can kind of check them out if you want. there's a couple others like laser grid and things like that, and some of the tech side of things, like with the instrumental transcommunication or ITC devices, and
Yeah.
we're not going to talk about those. We might talk about them in the future and stuff.
Yeah.
Like one of them even breaks out and says, let's talk about a Ouija board and let's talk about the planchette.
Ah.
And just so you know, the planchette on your Ouija board, if you happen to have one, should not be left or stored on the Ouija board.
Nope.
Because that's the device that channels and opens up the portal. And if you leave it open, it stays open. That means your communication. Same thing with like an upturned glass or something like that. So there you go. All right. So anyway, moving back into the podcast, we're going to talk about something else real quick. You ready?
Sure.
I forgot what I was going to say. No, I was going to say something, but it really wasn't that important. But this is the time of year where things happen.
Okay.
Right? It gets a little boring, I think, in the whole paranormal work, because we do paranormal and weird news.
Yeah.
And I've looked over and just sort of glossed over so many things that are happening in paranormal news, because a lot of it seems to be rehashing the same thing, or to me, it's just not really that interesting or whatever.
Yeah.
But there are a couple things that happen around this time of year that I think are pretty interesting. Right? And a lot of times people will use the winter time and the cold months to actually sort of further projects and do different things like that. To sort of keep their efforts going, right? Yeah. Small Town Monsters does that. They do the Kickstarter, and they do it in February, and I remember it because it's close to your birthday.
Yeah.
And with Small Town Monsters, they actually do their Kickstarter, and they lay out the projects that they're going to be doing for the following year, right? Mm-hmm. And they do a lot of paranormal movies and documentaries and shows and stuff like that. And I always enjoy them, so we typically back the Kickstarter.
Yes.
Because it's, they make a concerted effort, concerted, how do you say that? Concerted?
Yes.
A concerted effort, right? To kind of put good stuff out there, and it's good stuff that you can watch and see, and, they put the time and effort into it to a point where it's interesting, and it's not so, over the top or over dramatized. It's just, I think it's decent to watch, because there's so many shows on TV that are like way over the top. Right?
Yeah.
Whereas this is better. It's just better. Anybody can watch them. You can learn some stuff from them. You get an idea of what's going on. So, I'm kind of digging it. So they're going to be having their Kickstarter, fire up in February. I'm trying to remember the day.
I believe it's like February 3rd or 4th. Usually.
Well, we have a link to it, right? So if you click on the link, it'll take you to the Small Town Monsters, Kickstarter, right? And I want to say that I know it's like February 2nd or something like that. So, but this time around, they're going to be working on some of their upcoming projects, which is going to be the Jersey Devil, which is going to be cool, werewolves or dogmen, if you're nasty, Bigfoot and UFOs. I mean, you can't go wrong with any of that stuff. And they're talking about, doing like, bloodlines with the Jersey Devil, Bigfoot Last Frontier, On the Trail of UFOs is in there, and American Werewolves. So I'm down, right?
Yeah.
I want to say it's February something. I have a link. You have to click on it and find out. So the link takes 3rd. You to Facebook, and not everybody has Facebook. So it's usually the first week.
February 3rd.
There you go.
So, yep. And you can choose your reward level, like always. And they have a Kickstarter exclusive, which will include a cotton tee with logo designed by Jonathan Dodd.
Nice.
So, and this year, the Small Town Monsters house logo enamel pin.
Yeah. So, Seth Breedlove, buddy, if you're listening, good for you. That was dramatic. I was being dramatic, right? Good for you, and I'm going to get one of those pins, man. I'll see you again. You better have one or two. That's not like a threat or anything. I'm just saying. Super excited. I think it's kind of neat. So, yeah, we enjoy it, and we're going to, we'll back the Kickstarter. And if you're looking for something that, you can kind of watch and get some cool swag and all that kind of stuff, these are definitely the Kickstarter people to back.
Yeah.
So, and they do a good job. All of them. I like talking to all of them. I think they're committed to what they do, and at the same time, they're not. You can talk to them. A lot of people are a little hardcore about things. These guys, and these are people, right? They're into it, but they're approachable and they're nice. Some people, if you kind of go off the beaten path when you're talking about stuff with them, they get a little worked up. Like, you can go up to some people and say, Bigfoot is a transcendental ghost. And you can just watch their eyes just kind of like, everybody's like, okay, we're fighting in the parking lot kind of thing, right? Yeah.
I'm very interested this year with the discussion of the werewolves, because werewolves for me has always been more of a supernatural concept than cryptozoological concept for me.
Yeah.
So to actually see that there might be some modern encounters of werewolves, that I'm very intrigued.
Well, it's kind of weird because it sort of splits, right?
Yeah.
I believe if you go all the way back to Anubis, and then you look at Anubis and the guards of Anubis, and you carry that forward, and then you look at the sort of the Romanian side of things, where it's like, the only way to sort of fix it is to be killed by a purified method, because so, see, here's the problem. It's not really a problem, but here's something that I noticed too. Okay, so werewolves, if you look at the more of a conscious thing, where a conscientious decision that's made can cause issues for you, and it becomes sort of a level of purity of intent, right? You become a monster every 30 days or whatever it is, so it becomes a sort of battle of conscience, right? Mm-hmm. And the only way to survive that is to be killed through either to fix the problem that causes your dilemma, your conscientious problem, right? Or you get killed by silver, which is the purification method. In other words, owning up to what you did in the crisis. But you take that and you compare that to also things like Wendigo, where the thirst, all these things have all these pesky morals behind them for a lot of things, right?
But then they also have, depending on the culture and what aspect you're looking at, it's like a natural progression that's a part of this person who has changed.
Yeah.
So, like, if we stray away from the European and even some of the Egyptian concepts and go more towards the indigenous, it's more of a natural cyclical thing. And yes, we can tie that into like women's history, or even like the shifter literature fanatics, people like that. It is a natural side or aspect of a human who is made a decision. So
yeah, we're not really good at that. Because that's what this is a problem. There's so much sort of history to kind of put behind things, and not necessarily like, historical as in historical events, just in general, like the lore behind it. It can go off in so many different directions and tangents. It's really hard to get an idea what you're actually looking at.
And it's modern lore that keeps growing, unlike certain like fascinating like cryptid or supernatural things. It's the one that grows. I mean, you go on Amazon, there's like tons of werewolf like fiction novels and like subcultures and stuff like that. Whereas like vampires, it's pretty much stayed the same, minus, like Blade and like the modern interpretations of vampires being cool or glittery or whatever.
Yeah.
It's being built upon as we speak, and it's growing. So that's another thing I find cool.
It's pretty cool.
Yeah.
Very nice.
Yeah. So check out their link for their Kickstarter. We've provided a link in the show notes to this podcast episode. Looks like February 3rd is when the campaign launches, and we're looking forward to it.
Yep.
Yeah.
And there's a little spot in there too. You can have it to send you a reminder so that you can, and they're going to do a live basically on Facebook. You can kind of watch the launch and chat up with them and stuff. Okay, so the last time we were at CryptidCon, and the time before that, we actually went to this place in Littleton, North Carolina, and we talked to Mr. Steve Marcello, right?
Yeah.
And he runs the cryptological. Okay, so Steve's an interesting character, right? He's a journalist, right, in New York, moved to North Carolina. Okay, so he's done a bunch of stuff, and anyway, I don't want to get too far in that side of the thing, but he is a commissioner in Littleton, North Carolina, and he actually runs the Cryptozoological and Paranormal Museum as well. Yeah. He was doing it out of his house, which is one of the oldest houses there in that little town, right? And He's got some neat stuff there. Went down there and talked to him. Actually, we were there we went to go to see the museum, and it was like 3.5 hours later. We left the museum, and we actually wanted to hook it up with him again, give him a little chat, kind of see what was going on at CryptidCon. Yeah. And he had told us, I'm going to be moving the museum to a sort of downtown location. So moving it from his house, where it's been there for like 6 years, to a more centralized, in the heart, right, of Littleton, right, downtown. So better parking, bigger facility, all that sort of thing. And evidently, it's made the news in a couple different places. And he told us beforehand that, hey, I got a place. I'm moving stuff in. It's going to be open when when he has the ability, because he's kind of a one-man band with this thing. His daughter helps him out, and he's got some other help to kind of other people trying to help him out to get this thing sort of established. But if you didn't know, creating these museums and doing things like that, you're kind of hard pressed to. It's kind of a thing, from the outside. If you like the paranormal stuff and you go to these museums and stuff, and you kind of check it out, and you're like, wow, this is kind of neat. There's a lot of work that goes behind it, and honestly, you don't make a lot of money.
No. Because
if you did, you could be like, I need a team of builders to come in here, and, so you got to do what you can.
And a large part of it, though, is kind of, and this is to his benefit, you kind of have to sink in or network strongly with the local tourism and, because you're a paranormal museum. While everybody listening to this podcast would get excited by that, some places aren't excited.
Yeah.
So to find out that Littleton, North Carolina has embraced this cryptozoology and paranormal museum to the point where he's now opening a new location.
He said not nicer.
No, well, I mean, he was operating right out of his home, which was it's a nice house.
Well, no, I mean, a lot of places do that.
Yeah.
And it was one of the oldest homes in Littleton.
I mean,
this is more of a, it's downtown. It's just better, right?
In fact, I'm looking at it. I'm like, oh, we did a U-turn in the parking lot across from this building. So, yeah, I mean, it's like, this is right near, it's downtown.
Yeah.
So.
We're excited.
Yeah.
So we're glad it's going to be opening up soon. The last time I checked, they were trying to staff it out so it can be open, because it's obviously not going to be in his home. It's going to need people to work there and stuff. So I don't know. You can kind of check it out. We do have a link to go to the website, and you can kind of take a look and see. But he is commissioner. So I don't know. I don't know if he's going to rerun for that position in city council. I'm not sure what's going on with that.
Yeah, he was doing a lot of interim city council type positions because it's a small town.
And, hey, Corona has hit.
Yeah.
In a lot of places. So we'll kind of see. But anyway, Steve, if you're listening and you need some help, like we told you before, just let us know. We'll do what we got to do.
We should visit.
Yeah, when it's done.
Yeah.
Say, hey, might show up and he might put us to work.
Yeah.
That might be okay.
Well, he does say he needs to have some researchers come in and help him start keeping track of reports of paranormal activity and sightings.
Yeah.
To start documenting some of the more haunted paranormal stuff going on in the community.
Yeah.
That's cool.
And that's what we talked about when we were there.
Yeah.
Kind of the same thing. And we told him, hey, So anyway, I'm glad. I'm glad to see that that's going to be better all the way around, Yeah. It'd be interesting to see if some of the haunted objects and stuff that he had at his house, if once it gets transplanted to this new place, if it changes things.
Yeah, because I mean, when we went, it was basically 2.5 rooms of paranormal and cryptid stuff.
Yeah, a lot of haunted object stuff.
Yeah.
But there was some upstairs stuff too.
Yeah.
But anyway, yeah, it's good to see. So anyway, Steve, like I said, if you're listening, you need something, or you need a little help, just let us know, or we'll reach out to you and say, hey, when can we come take a tour? That kind of thing.
I'm gonna put a link to his Facebook page in our show notes for folks too. So.
That'd be very nice.
Because they didn't in the news article, so.
Yeah. It's always yeah. Hey man, why would you want to include a link to something like Facebook that everybody uses,
Yeah.
in your news article? So.
Anyways.
Yep. Okay, so I thought it was pretty neat. So Steve's moving his thing, and if you're down in Littleton, North Carolina, or you're going to make a trip, go. It's a very nice experience because he's very friendly, very personable, and he has a lot of knowledge. And plus, if you can get him talking about some serial killer stuff from when he was a journalist.
Yeah, he was a journalist in the Northeast, an investigative journalist.
Yeah.
A lot of his research into some of the more nefarious stuff up there is being used in A&E documentaries and documentaries on Netflix.
Yeah.
Great dude.
So here's a couple of questions that I had the other day. These are almost like shower thoughts, but, can't really say like shower thoughts. If you're not familiar with shower thoughts, it's kind of a Reddit thread.
Yeah.
Or the idea is, just weird thoughts that you have, kind of like when, like when you're in a shower and you're just kind of doing weird thinking, just things like. So here's something that sort of let me think about something that kind of turned into something. All right. Ready? Mm-hmm. So here's the idea behind it. Weather paranormal. And does weather act as a basically a predecessor to paranormal activity? Mm-hmm. I'm going to say yeah. Because think about it. There's a lot of instances where you have things like some intense weather phenomena that happens, right?
I've heard of intense weather phenomenon prior to UFO activity.
So every scary situation, every horror movie you've ever seen, right? A fog rolls in.
Every spooky novel and a dark fog rolled
right.
in
And
on a gloomy night.
Yeah, and that's kind of a weird sort of weather phenomena, right?
Yeah.
So here's something that happened to us. So late one evening, I'm sitting there doing what I do, and we have a weather station, and it has a wind meter and a directional thing and all. It's a weather station, right? It's a weather instrument. Because when you pay more than $30 for these things, it becomes a weather instrument.
Okay.
And we had what, according to that little weather station, was an intense weather phenomena. Our weather station basically went and read all the way up to 124 miles per hour on the wind doodad, and had a temperature reading of 199 degrees. And it had an audible alarm. And it read and fluctuated in that level, 124, it was like 120 to 124 miles per hour and 199 degree weather and a little bit higher because that was as high as it would go. And it lasted for 22 seconds.
Huh.
And I'm like, okay. And remember I told you about that. I'm like, what's going on with this, right?
Yeah.
And so by the time it was done, after about 22 seconds, the final wind reading dropped down to 1 mile per hour and the temperature went back to 48 degrees.
Yeah.
And this happened like on the first day of fall or something like that. I can't remember. But it was like in September. And my thought was, that's crazy. And we tried to duplicate it. Remember we went out there with the leaf blower?
Yeah.
And tried to blow on it to see if we can get it. And we couldn't duplicate it. Because I was just trying to figure out what was going on,
Yeah. I was there trying to smack it, smack the little whirly bird things.
Yeah.
On it.
and this was at night. So it wasn't like the sun was beating on this thing. Because it is solar powered and it does, have a rechargeable battery built into it. Only happened the one time. Thought it was super crazy. Happened to be sitting there. I didn't even know the weather station had an audible alarm for weather. It had an alarm to if you want to act as an alarm clock or to remind you of something. But I didn't realize it had an alarm saying, "Hey, it's crazy hot" or "It's crazy windy" and stuff. And after it went off, and we figured out what it was.
Yeah,
because it happened. I was like, "What is that? Right? What's making that noise?" It's like, okay, and it didn't happen again. Well, just the other night we had, and this was January 18th. We had a weather alert, right? And the weather alert. Audible alarm went off twice because I don't know how to turn it off because I don't know where it is in the little menu thing as you're pressing multiple buttons trying to figure it out.
Yeah.
And the temperature went up to 199 degrees again. And then it dropped. And then it went up to 199 degrees again. Right? Because I was ready for it the second time.
Yeah.
And I was like, if it does it again, I'm going to take a picture of it. And I did. But, if we say that the weather station worked correctly, and did its job, what is that?
Yeah.
How can you get almost 200 degree weather and have wind speed of 125 mile per hour? What would cause that?
And we live in a valley, so it's not like we can get. We live in a well-treed valley. So
yeah, we're in a bowl.
Yeah. So, and we're surrounded by trees, so there's no way the wind could pick up unless there was an actual, full-on storm going on.
And something where you have that much wind and where the weather station is actually located, it would be evident there would be stuff moving around. I mean, it would be noisy. It would not just be a random thing.
And this wasn't near any types of thunderstorms or anything like that. So
it was a weird thing. And so I was like, man, this is kind of weird. And it got me thinking about, okay, what would cause this? Is this like an extreme weather phenomenon? Is there something else involved, right? I have no idea. Because my thought was like, maybe there's like a ball of plasma floating by. Like ball lightning or something, right?
Yeah.
Who knows? But if you look at the law of thermodynamics, and I'm going to really simplify it, if you have a cold spot here, then the way it works, there should be a hot spot somewhere else.
Okay.
So what if somebody is having a cold spot experience, possibly looking at some, ghost type stuff, and we just happen to be on the other end of that, and we catch the hot spot?
But then we'd want to seek out that other person.
Well, yeah, but how?
I don't know.
Yeah, exactly.
Isn't
I have
that
no
like
idea.
The two molecule thing, that two molecules in two different dimensions type thing, like reaction?
I don't know. Sounds good.
Okay.
I mean, how do we know, right?
Yeah.
So if you look at like, law of thermodynamics and other stuff like equal and exact opposites and all this crazy stuff. So if one thing happens in one place, the opposite should happen somewhere else.
Yeah.
So if somebody's experiencing a cold spot, right, somewhere else, somebody's experiencing a hot spot. And if they are related somehow like that, that would explain a lot of just weird weather phenomena. So what if we've experienced it because for whatever reason, somehow or another, our experience is linked to the opposite experience somewhere else?
Yeah, but see,
so that makes me wonder, right? If we're having like a weird experience here, is somebody else having it there?
Yeah, but that bugs me because I would want to know about that other person.
Well, yeah, but you're never going to know. How would you know?
We could ask.
Ask who?
Well, we'd start with our close-knit friends and
And
family.
then once we spread out to our alternate parallel dimension, then we'll know, right? I mean, there's no way to know. No way to know.
Okay.
Because number one, devices aren't accurate enough to be able to do that. And this isn't like, science fiction. We can track this particle because it's a unique particle.
Okay.
Who knows? And then my other thought was like, what if somewhere like when they're firing up the Hadron Collider or whatever, this is just a byproduct?
Yeah.
I
don't know.
Now, we do live in an area where there's allegedly deep underground military bases and weird stuff happens. What if somebody's in this deep underground military base and some secret lab firing up some kind of device?
I've seen some. I've been allowed.
So they flip a switch and my weather station goes to 199 degrees and 200 miles an hour.
So I'm
it's
using
like a spark or something.
Using air quotes right now, but I've been allowed in a couple more Appalachia groups, and I have seen some stuff. There are some people who are swearing that there's like a Hadron Collider here in the Appalachia.
Maybe there is. Who knows, man? China created like something like the sun for 12 minutes and one of their. I mean, who knows what's going on?
Yeah.
But every time this happens, something weird happens. You know what I mean? But here's what I like, and this has become a thing too. Once these two things always make me just want to yell at people. And not really yell at them, but go, "Come on, man." When you see a helicopter flying around, like a military-style helicopter, that's not unusual.
Yeah.
It may be unusual because you haven't seen it. Guess what? Military helicopters fly around. That's what they do. And when you're on the East Coast, right, let's say from Maine to Florida, there are military bases from Maine to Florida, right? Mm-hmm. So when you see one flying around in North Carolina, it is not an unusual thing. There are military bases in North Carolina.
People who like us, or who are not like us, who didn't grow up in a military community or grow up on the East Coast even, when they come to places like North Carolina, where they may not be in touch with the military culture here or the military installations here, they are so shocked.
I get it. I understand why they would be shocked, but I'm saying that, hey,
these grass states in the Midwest.
Let's take a look here. You have the Army National Guard, the Air National Guard. You have, in every state, there are places for people to go do drills and keep their training up. It's part of the requirement. They don't just collect a paycheck every month for not, they're part of the reserves or whatever. Guess what? You're going to see a helicopter flying around. And sometimes they fly these things for maintenance. Sometimes they're brought in to do other things. I mean, sometimes there's training to be done. It's not unusual to see a helicopter.
And my thing is, I see black helicopters. Well, first off, It probably looks black depending on what angle the sun's
Well, I mean,
at.
you know what? It may be black. If it's not part of a unit yet or whatever, if it's brand new, you're probably not going to have a bunch of numbers on it and stuff like that. But this gets into the other part where you see people go, do you see these trains and they're full of military hardware? What's going on? Okay, so if you got a tank, right? Like, let's say you make tanks and that's your job. That's your business. You create tanks for the military in California. How do you get a tank to go to Fort Story, Virginia? Keep in mind, tanks are stupid heavy.
And huge and wide.
You just drive it there?
No.
How are you going to get it there? You're going to use the railway system that has been, over time, the number one way to transport, lots of heavy equipment and hardware. You're not going to put it on a boat and sail it around the country to try to get there and cruise in through the Panama Canal. You're going to put it on one of the trails,
and for
train rails.
And for people who argue that might be from places like Texas or Nebraska, who are like, well, you could put it on like a big truck, because I see solar and wind stuff on big trucks.
Man.
Yeah, you know what? That only happens in your state.
Yeah.
So, like, when we were driving through Texas and we kept seeing the
big blades,
the big blades for the windmills, that only happens in your state, y'all.
Yeah, but they try to make it out to be a thing, and it creates this sort of inflammatory response. And it's like, okay, well, how do you get heavy? And plus, military installations in general, they supply and request, and they have a requisition process to get new gear, to replace gear. Things get shuffled around all the time. It's not necessarily a crazy thing to see military tanks and other military hardware being transported by railway across the country. And you can't get from like California to Virginia without going through a couple states.
Yeah.
So it's not like, okay. I don't know. It's just that, that sort of feeds into it because, this is the year of skepticism for me. I need to be more skeptical and start looking at things. And I've sort of made a shift for a while to where a lot of the stuff that we see that's UFO related, I know is military.
Yeah.
Now there's things that you can't explain, but at the same time, do you really want to know? This gets into a conversation where people are like, the military and the government absolutely has to tell us everything it's doing. And I'm kind of like, that would be great, but I don't think that they probably should. There's things we don't need to know.
Yeah.
You know why? People can't keep secrets. And we're in a world where, okay, just because we're not necessarily worried about Cold War type stuff anymore and the American public's not too worried about it, there are other countries that are. And there's still things called spies, and there's still all this other stuff, and people can't keep secrets. So we don't need to know all that stuff.
But yeah, regionally, meaning here, I'm not convinced a lot of this is military. I think, like, we have what sounds like private planes passing over us every night around like 10 or 11 p.m.
Well, shockingly, we are close to airports.
Yeah. And they sound small, they sound small to mid-sized planes.
Well,
and it's not, unless it started getting really creepy and really weird, I'm not alarmed.
As I'm sure you're well aware.
Yeah.
There are regional and local airports. We actually talked to one who was flying through Linville Gorge and seen all sorts of Predator-type drones. Remember that guy?
Yeah.
It may be unusual to us, but just because it's unusual doesn't mean it's nefarious, conspiratorial, or alien-related.
Yeah.
And, this is kind of like the time of year where it's like, I don't know. I think, and here's part of it probably too, because as we're just kind of wandering down this path, I think a lot of stuff that's starting to happen is because there's a lot of people going back to work. So we had a lot of activity sightings and things like that when people were locked down. Mm-hmm. And I think we're going to get them too, because people are going back out into the world for real.
Yeah.
And seeing things that are unusual to them, and so it's being reported. Like people are like, what is this mile long? Why are all these tanks being? It's like shifting resources, man. They do it a lot. I don't know. It's just kind of a thing. But I want to know if somebody else is firing up their Hadron Collider in a deep underground military base somewhere in Linville Gorge, like in North Carolina. Is that screwing with my weather station? Because I have to know what the actual accurate weather is, because I don't trust Doppler radar and all these weather people that are like, you know what? You're going to get 12 inches of snow at 4:30 p.m. on the dot. and then nothing happens until like the next day. It's like
I saw a rant about that, and it is annoying.
What did we do? It's gonna snow at 6 o'clock. What did we do? We went outside at 6. Nothing.
Yeah, 11 p.m. It finally snowed.
Yeah, it's like
and see that's the other thing. We live so rural that most. I mean, yeah, you'd figure that there would be weather stations connected to multiple networks and things like that would give accurate forecasting depending on where you live. And it doesn't happen out here.
Nope.
I mean,
it doesn't happen anywhere. That's the thing, because we were complaining about that in New Mexico, too.
Yeah, but then some dude installed his little weather station in Rio Rancho, and suddenly stuff started to make a little more sense.
Underground, yes, the underground weather people, right? Weather underground.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, I don't know, with weather and the paranormal, is it a predecessor of paranormal things to come, or does the weather cause paranormal things to happen?
Well, I was thinking about, like...
It could go either way, because if you look at this, right, we've got all sorts of things that happen. We've got fog, temperature variance, barometric pressures, UFOs hiding as clouds, weather masking cryptids, like thunderbirds were flying clouds and storms,
and
right?
see, that goes with the folklore for the thunderbird, because a thunderbird always arrives on the wings of the storm.
Right. And then, like you were talking about with storms basically accompanying like missing 411 cases and Bigfoot and UFOs.
And yeah, because even the Aurora incident and a Beaufort, Texas incident both had strange weather, near hurricane or wind conditions prior to them happening.
Yep. And one of the stories we talked about like 5 years ago was a guy in Puerto Rico watching a storm where he said he seen 2 thunderbirds.
Oh, yeah.
In Puerto Rico.
So we
actually included a link to take you to mysteriousuniverse.org, where you can look at an article written by Nick Redfern in June. Basically, it was written June 5th, 2021, where it talks about strange storms and weird weather from the paranormal to government experiments.
So.
Yep. And I started to skim it, and I realized that we had already kind of talked about a lot of this stuff, but it's kind of interesting to look at, with magnetic waves and all this crazy stuff going on.
But that makes me, okay, so if you saw a storm rolling in, and on the edges of that storm you saw a thunderbird, what would you do?
Me?
Yeah.
Immediately pull out my camera and try to take as much video as possible.
Okay, and then you would...
Because taking pictures is for suckers, right? If you think you see something, right, and you're out in the woods, or whatever, you think you see something cryptid, paranormal, or whatever, don't try to take pictures. Turn your phone to video, tap the screen so you can try to focus, and just record video.
Okay, and then you would...
Well, I mean, that's probably it. I would watch it.
Okay. Would you go to greet the thunderbird? Would you run away? Would you hide?
If it's in the sky, how am I going to greet it?
We're just hypothetical situation.
You mean, would I wave hey?
Yeah.
No?
Okay.
Hey, guys.
No, okay, so...
You mean, would I... Okay, so I guess I don't... I'm not maybe spiritual enough to be able to welcome the thunderbird to attract it to me, because, if you look at the thunderbird, either good things happen or bad things happen.
Thank you. That's what I was trying to get at.
So I don't know. And this being 2022 and the way I am, I would document it as an experience. I don't know if it would necessarily be spiritual or not.
Yeah. And a traditional explanation of the thunderbird was that it was a bringer of great news, not necessarily good or bad, but massive news.
Important news, yeah.
Yes. But people have taken that word great into a different context. And I've noticed the more and more certain people try to explore cryptids, either indigenous or regional or sacred to certain cultures, certain words may be misinterpreted.
Well, yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, it's different meanings for, Now, if you look at it as being like an actual cryptid.
Yeah.
And a big giant bird.
A big giant raptor bird, I'd be
comes
terrified.
Swooping at me, I'm hauling ass. I'm not hanging around to go see if it's going to bring me great news or not, because to me, at that point, once it shifts from being, oh, look at this, I look at the Great Spirit and try to figure out what it's all about. Once it comes to attack mode, I'm out of there.
Yeah.
I'm not going to hang around. And how am I going to fight off a big giant bird? But you got to wait until you figure out if the bird is actually big or not.
I think
perspective,
people are trying, some of the younger or newer people exploring cryptozoology, they want to put certain cryptids in certain boxes, like friendly, bad, scary, great, wonderful,
Yeah.
And lately I've seen certain things get typecast as automatically being evil or not evil or overly good.
Yeah.
And I'm always one of those gray people. I don't believe Bigfoot is friendly, but I also don't think all Bigfoot are vicious apex predators.
Yeah, well, and this goes back to instincts that we talked about in the last podcast. If you don't follow, I think the instincts that people had when it comes to like uncanny valley and pareidolia and stuff like that, I think that those instincts aren't being fine-tuned or used enough because we don't really need to.
Yeah. Like me, if I saw a thunderbird, yes, I would be in awe. And I'd probably be in awe to a dangerous level, like too long before it snatches somebody up if it is an actual predator, like raptor bird. You know, and I would be in awe that I got to witness it, but then I'm going to probably seek shelter or kind of be a little more timid about what happens next, you know? The same thing with Bigfoot. I'm not going to run up to Bigfoot and be like, hey!
Yeah.
So I would caution against categorizing these cryptids as, you know.
Yeah, there are a couple cryptids that people look at as being bad all the time.
Yeah.
Dogman's one of them. Werewolf's one of them. Right?
Yeah.
So, I mean, who knows? I don't really know. But I would definitely try to get some kind of evidence, and I would like to be around to present said evidence, which means that if it's going to come swooping at me, I'm leaving.
Yeah.
Because that's probably, one, what it wants me to do, and two, I'm not fast.
Well, like, okay, Jersey cryptid, that thing is...
You mean Jersey Devil?
Or, yeah, Jersey Devil. That thing looks scary. So I think
it looks kind of goofy, but I mean, you know.
Yeah, I'm going to go with my gut reaction though and kind of run from that one, you know.
So I don't know. It's a weird thing, but you know, the weather though, it just seems like there's a lot of instances whenever like paranormal events happen or occur, or even it's always sort of weather related, in one way or another. But the idea that a hot spot happening here creates a cold spot somewhere else, and a cold spot happening somewhere else creates a hot spot here.
Now I gotta look up that theory.
See, it's crazy, right? And I'm like, and so I thought about it for all about 10 minutes and moved on because I'm like, okay, this is just one of those things where, you know, it can turn into something else. And for me, it did. It turned into something completely different, right? Because I thought about, you know, that sort of thing and how maybe that's some sort of parallel universe or mysterious thing or glitch in the matrix, all that. But it came to Mandela Effect and food. Right, food that we, you know, changed for whatever reasons. Like, and then I thought, well, is there a Mandela effect for food? And what got me thinking about this is something that we had talked about where, you know, I don't really like bananas anymore. I loved them. They were like my favorite thing to eat when it came to eating like, you know, fruits and vegetables. And I'm not getting into the definition of what a fruit is and what a vegetable is. I'm just not doing that. They tasted, I just liked them a lot. Mm-hmm. And it's gotten to the point now where you buy bananas and I eat one and I'm done for like a month. I could care less.
Because they taste different to you.
They're different, yeah. It's not even so much the taste, I think, because they are blander, right? And this could be that I'm getting older. Maybe my taste buds are just wore out. Who knows, right? Mm-hmm. The texture is different to me. It's just weird. And that really sort of segued into grapes. Like you brought me some grapes. I like grapes, right? Yeah. And they were just too crispy and it was just wrong. And so I really started thinking about the whole Mandela effect in foods, right? Mm-hmm. So I did like anybody would do and get on the Google and came up with a couple different things I looked at. And it's like, there are Mandela effects for food. And so I put a real link, a real common sort of popular, you know, link, right? Pop culture link, or I guess, whatever.
Okay, I'm already screaming over number 2.
Yeah, and this is from BuzzFeed, you know, which is a bastion of truth and accuracy, right? But it says, think you're in a parallel universe. And it started with the whole Fruit Loops thing. Like, Fruit Loops, and the way I remember Fruit Loops being spelled, is like actual fruit. F-U. Sorry, guys, sorry. Fruit, like, has an F-R-U-I-T.
Yeah.
But they're saying, no, it's actually spelled F-R-O-O-T. Like, they're deliberately misspelling fruit. And I'm like, no, that is complete garbage.
No, because...
And then my next thought was, the reason being is because they're really not fruit at all.
Yeah.
And maybe somebody tried to sue them and say, hey, man, because we're in a litigious society, right? That's really not fruit, so it's got to be, you know, fake fruit.
There was that whole literacy campaign in the 80s where they were really pushing to make sure things that young children were exposed to were spelled correctly so that those children, especially like suburban, inner city kids, learned how to spell correctly through the things they ingested, consumed, or interacted with. So it was always spelled correctly. Oh my!
That's the way I thought.
Yeah, they have one here, and I'm getting mad. Cuppo noodles. They're saying it's never been Cuppo noodles. It was always cup noodles.
False.
I'm
thinking that's false.
Yeah.
False. And they're saying that double stuffed Oreos, right? And I don't remember them being stuffed like STUFFED.
Mm-hmm.
I remember them being STUFF, like double stuffed Oreos.
God, I bought these all the time for my little brother. Why don't I remember these?
I don't know, but they're saying that double stuff really is spelled STUF.
No.
That's just stupid. I don't, nope.
This one, Pixie Sticks. PIXIE. They're saying no.
I remember it being spelled with two X's. PIXXIE. Pixie stick.
Huh.
Yeah. So I'm like, okay, so, and here's the thing though. That's the way it probably was, but with this whole Mandela effect and the fact that, we fired up the collider and we basically burnt our own world and our own dimension has been burned away and we're occupying someone else's dimension. Maybe that's part of it. Who knows? This
one, number 7, started an entire war on Facebook in like 2018, 2019.
Yeah.
Doesn't Chick-fil-A look correct? Unfortunately, it's really spelled chick, like chicken, fillet.
Yeah.
And there was a woman who would not let it go on their Facebook page because they were showing off the design of like a cup or a container of nuggets or something. And it hit BuzzFeed because she was like, no, it's not. You guys changed your label.
Yeah. I never remembered it having a K.
Really?
Yep. And here's the peanut butter one, and all these people can go, okay, so Jiffy peanut butter doesn't exist. It's always been Jif. I don't believe that.
I don't believe that either.
So, and so it just kind of went on, right? And I'm like, wow, there's evidently a bunch of these because I found multiple articles on multiple websites bringing this up. And Mike and Ike, these little garbage candies, right?
Doesn't your daughter like those?
I don't know.
Yeah.
Who knows, man?
She would know.
It depends.
Yeah.
No, it doesn't, because what if she's younger? Both of them are younger. What if they don't remember them? Like, Mike and Ike's been around for a long time. I don't ever remember being Mike and Ike. I remember it being Mike
and Ike.
With an N in the middle, Ike. Yeah. Mike and Ike.
Are we losing our minds?
No, I think they're just changing stuff and lying about it. Who knows? Like Chuck E. Cheese's. Right?
Yeah.
Chuck E. Cheese and not Chuck. I don't really care about that one so much. Captain Crunch. I remember this being Captain Crunch, not Captain Crunch. Which is dumb because he's not really captain. He's an admiral.
Yeah.
So I don't know why they're doing that. Cheez-Its was kind of weird. I don't remember it being spelled out cheese because it's obviously not cheese.
Yeah.
Even though it says made with 100% real cheese. Yeah. Really? I don't, And then Coke Zero. They're saying it was never Coke Zero. It was always Coca-Cola Zero. And the one that really angers me, it doesn't really anger me, honestly. I don't really give too much. But one that really sort of gets me is Kit Kat. And they're saying that, no, it doesn't have a hyphen in it.
Yes, it did.
Yeah. I've always seen it with the dash. Because the kit is separate from the cat. Because they are different. That was the thing. You have these wafers, and they're supposed to be different wafers. You have a kit and a cat. So.
It's Kit-Kat.
And I don't ever remember the Sunkiss logo for orange soda being connected, where they're saying that the U and the N are connected together. I remember being separate and distinct.
Yeah.
I don't know. And who's going to know with this these days? Like youngsters, they're not going to know. They can't even look at cursive and figure out what it means. It's like an indecipherable language to most people, right? We used to write in cursive. I don't know. But yeah. We're talking about like Nesquik being misspelled. And then we're gonna probably leave it up with the York peppermint patty, right? Mm-hmm. It says not only is the correct spelling York peppermint patty, but the slogan, get the sensation, is not feel the sensation. That is 100% false. I remember being feel the sensation.
Yeah.
Because it was like, when I bite into a York peppermint patty, I feel the sensation of. And those were all the commercials they were made across. Not get this. You don't say, oh, I bite into a York peppermint patty, I get this sensation of. No. That's not what it was. Because the commercials were like, you bite into that delicious York peppermint patty and you could feel it.
Huh.
It's like using Vicks Vapor Rub. You don't get the sensation of it burning your eyes to death and burning your nose. It's like you feel it.
The Rice Krispies one kind of makes me mad, too, because I remember when they came out with the Rice Krispies Treats cereal, and I ate a whole box of that stuff.
Okay, we're going to end it with number 20 in this long list, right?
Yeah.
I remember what they're calling Totino's pizza rolls as Toast-tinos, like Tostino.
I never really ate them, so.
When I seen them,
Cocoa Puffs.
But Cliff Bar.
Oh my gosh.
Cliff Bar to me always had 2 F's. And they're like, nope, it's just got 1. I'm like, these are just lies. This is all lies. So.
Oh my God. This is messing with me.
Yeah. And they're trying to say that Tony the Tiger's nose wasn't black on the Frosted Flakes box. It's blue. Get out of here. Falsehood. It's all false. So I don't know. So anyway, hey, look, if you guys are listening and you're like, what is he talking about? I remember it this way or that way. And you want to leave us a message or a note or something, you can hit us up on our Facebook page.
CreepGeeks Podcast on Facebook. Our group is CreepGeeks Facebook group. Real easy to find. Or you can actually email us, contact@creepgeeks.com, or give us a call. Send us, give us a voicemail. Tell us about all your foods.
Yeah.
That's going to be 575-208-4025.
Yes.
Yeah.
We would like to hear from you. So, all right, before we wrap up the podcast, in the previous podcasts, we've talked about our game cameras that we've been setting up to capture and document and record the weird goings-on of the animal kingdom that seems to be living around our house.
Yeah.
Where we're located in this deep underground bunker, right?
Yep.
And the one that was most interesting was the coyote. Hey, I wrote this part. I thought the fox is cool, but coyote is more interesting, right?
Yeah.
They came by again, so that's twice we've seen the coyote.
We haven't seen the bobcat yet, so that's kind of bums me out.
Well, they're travelers.
Yeah. The deer came by itself.
Yeah.
And the coyote, or alleged coyote, that was on the camera last night looks a little tall for a coyote, and I'm going to go compare it to the coyote footage we got from a few days ago. Yeah.
So we're thinking about putting up a video, and if you guys are experts in that sort of thing, and you can look at the video and go, yes, that's a coyote or a fox or a dog or whatever, you could weigh in so we know exactly, because we're not animalologists, so it kind of is what it is. But anyway.
Animalologists.
Yep.
Really?
Animalologists. So I think that's it. We're going to go ahead and wrap up the podcast. We do appreciate you listening. Yeah. So, hey, reach out to us.
Yep. Thanks for tuning in, and a special thanks to our Patreon supporters for supporting each episode that comes out. Check us out on social media or on Patreon. Show notes include links to all the ways you can contact us or get connected with CreepGeeks.
Yes.
Yep.
Okay, it's all right. See you later. Take it easy. Bye-bye.
Bye.